Okay, Sam.
Okay. On August 1st, 2007, the I-35 West Bridge in Minneapolis collapsed. It pitched cement slabs, twisted metal, and cars 10 stories down into the Mississippi River below it. 13 people died in this tragedy, and 145 were injured. The story, as reported by Kristen Doerer for PBS News in October of 2015, also gave the reasons and the story behind this tragedy and this collapsed bridge. The problem is the department knew about the bridge for years beforehand. They knew that it was structurally deficient and was likely to collapse, but they couldn't do anything about it. For 17 years, this bridge was marked as needed repairs, but they could never shut it down for repairs because they didn't have the funding. This issue is not an isolated incident. The American Society of Civil Engineers published a report in 2017 that found 1 in 5 roads in the United States are in poor condition. 20% of our roads are in bad condition. We know about them, but we can't fix them because we don't have the money. And this is why I believe that the United States federal government must substantially reform its transportation policy. And in this speech, I want to show you why this needs to happen, why the current policies in place by the United States government are not enough, and finally, what the best possible solution to this issue is. So let's start off with why. Highways are in disrepair, and first let's look at the overall traffic deaths that happen on highways. The Department of Transportation published a report in 2017 that said 32,000 traffic deaths occurred in 2014, 90 deaths per day, and 260 people injured per hour. And all of these numbers rose even further looking at the data from the beginning of 2015. But the problem is when most people look at these types of numbers, they assume that the majority of these are caused by human factors. Either someone gets drunk and they crash and they injure people, someone is simply a bad driver and they crash and they injure people. But a different study related these numbers to what is specific to road problems. Drs. Edward Zoloshna and Dr. Tara Miller found in 2009 that 22,000 deaths are caused by road problems. And those deaths caused $217 billion in economic cost. And finally, the part that was most important to me was that all of these deaths are preventable. Road problems, as defined by their study, were issues with the roads that could be fixed with maintenance or repairs. Either they were potholes that people ran into and then that caused the crash. There were icy roads that could have been salted down or fixed to not be as slippery. All of the roads that caused these deaths could have been repaired. They could have been fixed, they could have been maintained in better ways, but they didn't have enough money. And this is why. All the roads in the United States, they're repaired out of the Highway Trust Fund. The Highway Trust Fund is a federal fund that takes money from the gas tax. Every time you buy gas, a slight amount of that, about 17 cents I believe, depends what state you're in, goes to the Highway Trust Fund. And then that money builds up to the Highway Trust Fund account, which sends money back to the roads to repair them. But the Highway Trust Fund right now is at a deficit. We're spending more money than we're taking in. And because we're already spending more than we're taking in, we don't have enough more money to spend on the roads that need repairs the most. People say that the money is not enough, but I believe the problem with the Highway Trust Fund is something different. I believe the problem with the Highway Trust Fund is that the money is wasted. And to see the proof of this, we can look to the policy analyst Emily Goff, who wrote in 2017, lured by $800,000 in federal and state Highway Trust Fund transit grants, officials in Arlington, Virginia built a $1 million bus stop. Meanwhile, the average commuter time in Arlington wasted 67 hours sitting in traffic in that year. With traffic that bad, a tricked-out bus stop is not the highest priority. Because the Highway Trust Fund gives money to states, some of these states decided, well, we have all of this money now, we might as well use it. So let's build a really big bus stop with fancy Wi-Fi and all kinds of other things. But they let the roads crumble while this was all happening. And this isn't an isolated case as well. There are many other cases of waste in the Highway Trust Fund. According to Michael Sargent for the Heritage Foundation in 2015, millions of dollars of Highway Trust Fund money have been spent on sidewalks, bike paths, and scenic landscapes. And perhaps the example that was most surprising to me, $100,000 of highway money was spent on building a sanctuary for squirrels. I believe the waste in the Highway Trust Fund is the reason why we don't have enough money. People in Congress are saying we need to raise the gas tax, we need to increase taxes to fix the solution, but their solutions aren't actually going to fix the problem. The solution they all have proposed is an increase in taxes, an increase in the gas tax that everyone pays. If everyone pays money when they're using the roads, using gas, then they should pay for the roads repairs, right? Well, the problem is this doesn't actually fix the issue, and it brings a bunch of issues along with it. The first is a huge taxpayer cost. An increase in the gas tax is a huge increase in taxes on our citizens, but it's not an equal tax. It's a very unequal tax. Poor people typically have less fuel-efficient cars, and they end up spending more on gas than richer people. So increasing the gas tax hurts them unequally. It's a higher tax on the poor and a lower tax on the rich, and it's an unequal tax on the American people. And the final problem with raising taxes is it just does not solve the problem. An estimate was found when somebody looked at the Highway Trust Fund and the money inside it. They found out that 50% of Highway Trust Fund money is spent on non-highway issues. Half of the money in the Highway Trust Fund does not go to highways, does not go to roads or bridges. It goes to sidewalks, bike paths, and other similar things. The Highway Trust Fund is a broken machine, and instead of feeding it more money, we need to fix it to make it more efficient with the money it already has. The problem in the current system is not that the Highway Trust Fund doesn't have enough money. It's that the money in the Highway Trust Fund isn't spent on the right things. Now, I'd like to emphasize that I don't think sidewalks are a bad thing, I don't think bike paths are a bad thing, and I don't think squirrels are a bad thing. I love squirrels. The problem is they're not the priority. If 22,000 Americans die because our roads aren't repaired every single year, that should be our priority. Our priority needs to be making sure the money in the Highway Trust Fund is spent on the problems that need the most focus. And the problem that needs the most focus is fixing American roads. And that takes me to the solution. What is the solution to this issue? Well, it's pretty simple. The solution to the issue is to limit highway money to highways. It's a revolutionary idea, right? We spend money from the Highway Trust Fund on highways, or at least on roads and bridges. And if this was done, it would solve the problem. It is more than enough money. A GAO study, a Government Accountability Office study, found that if money in the Highway Trust Fund were spent on roads and bridges, it would be 98% solvent in the next decade. And this was reported by Stephen Moore writing for The Hill in June 8th of 2015. The Government Accountability Office study found that if we limited Highway Trust Fund money to roads and bridges, it would solve the deficit in the Highway Trust Fund. We would have enough money again. We wouldn't be overspending, and we would be able to repair all of the roads in the United States that need it so much. And he's not the only person who reported this. Ross Marchard also wrote for Herald and News in February of this year that devoting Highway Trust Fund funds to only roads and bridges would solve the backlog of repairs. We have a huge backlog of repairs in the United States. We have many roads that need to be repaired, 20% of roads. But if we simply prioritized and made sure that the money is being spent where it needs to be spent, this would solve the issue. It sounds like a really simple solution, right? All you have to do is spend highway money on highways. All you have to do is fix the Highway Trust Fund so it puts money where it was intended. But although it's a very simple solution, the bill that was proposed to do exactly this was shot down. Representative Thomas Massey told USA Today in 2015 about his bill, the DRIVE Act. And the DRIVE Act would have done just this. It would limit the Highway Trust Fund money to roads and bridges. But this bill didn't even pass committee in Congress in 2015. And the reason for this is that congressmen don't really like repairs so much. They like being able to allocate money towards new projects. So when elections come around the next years, they can slap their name on the new project and say, look, I built this. I built this for you, so you should vote for me again. And all while they're doing this and building new projects, spending our money to build fancy new transit systems, fancy new bus stops, and even in some cases fancy sidewalks, they're letting our roads crumble. And this is where all of you come in. Because the government, in the current state it is, when it comes to this issue, is not going to fix itself. The only way it can be fixed is if we do something about it. So this is why I urge all of you to be careful who you support. I need you to support the right politicians. Support the politicians who promote efficiency instead of promoting waste. Support the politicians who want maintenance of the current system instead of fancy new projects. And support the politicians who will prioritize the money that you currently give them instead of asking you for more tax money when it is unnecessary. I believe the United States government should reform its transportation policy, and in order to do this, the American people have to reform their way of determining who they support in the government. We need to change who we support and make sure that the politicians we support are actually doing what's best for us. And what's best for us with highway trust and money is repairing the highways we drive on and creating a safer world for the American people. Thank you.
Okay, Sam, how did you come up with it? Where did you get the idea for the talk?
I've known about it for a long time because there's a homeschool speech and debate league, and one of the people I knew, this was his debate case, and he did really well on it, so he told me about it, and I looked over it, and it's a topic I'm somewhat familiar with.
Oh, okay. Yeah, interesting. Okay, what in your research, what did you find most compelling of it?
It wasn't a study that I cited in the speech, I probably should have, but it's a study that looked at every single state, and then it determined, based on that state's roads, how much people are cost every year by driving on it, just in maintenance costs. So in California, since the roads are bad here, you pay about an extra $1,200 than you would have if they were repaired.
Okay.